I'm Reshma, co-founder and CEO of Medplum, I mentioned, and I'm joined here by Roman, my co-host, who we will introduce shortly. Here's what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through a little bit of background and overview on Medplum. I'll walk you through it. I am going to introduce you to my co-host here, Roman Danylov, and he'll tell you more about his background and experience. And then Roman will walk us through a 12-week blueprint to build a FHIR application. And he has a really rigorous treatment here of this. We'll go through it, and then we'll talk a little bit about avoiding common pitfalls, and then we can do a bit of demos. That's what we're planning, and we'll open up for Q&A. Hope to keep it interesting and lively, and feel free to use the chat as needed if you have questions. First of all, about Medplum. Why does Medplum exist? We are an open source developer platform and company, help people build custom medical apps. And what we know from experience is that healthcare developers have what we call the terrible choice. They either build a great experience and start from scratch, and it's extremely labor intensive, slow, high ROI, high maintenance costs, or you buy this shrink wrap software and you fight with it, literally fighting. You have some back office staff cutting and pasting and RPA and really terrible workflows. Those are the status quo in the industry that we have seen from experience. And these choices leave the clinicians, the patients dissatisfied and underserved. Medplum is proposing a third path. We have developed a suite of applications, which is a third path, where together Medplum and devs can deliver healthcare products, and we provide what's under the iceberg here: authentication, workflow, data platform, as well as all these goodies, certifications. We do a lot of compliance, observability, security, integrations, etc. And the customers, developers, bring the custom logic, the user interface, and the clinical logic to make the custom application a lot more streamlined. And we hope to engage developers in building these applications. We serve as a unified platform on which many categories of health IT software can be built. And here's some examples. We run on Google, Azure, and AWS, and we all have a hosted offering, and across many categories, there exist applications built. Happy to talk about that. It's more intermediate level software versus a full stack application, but higher level than the infrastructure. Here's a system diagram. We have our API here, identity management, subscriptions, event-driven. Roman will talk about this more as well, but customers are typically developing applications above the API line and these bots. And a lot of cool stuff for AI, agents, co-pilots, scribes, good times. And we prioritize and love dev engagement, over 500,000 Docker downloads, really active community with a lot of contributors and GitHub stars. We focus on helping people build these highly flexible solutions. That's our thing. With that, I will introduce Roman, and he is notably a very senior developer who is experienced in building Medplum applications. Roman, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us about yourself and your experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Roman and I'm a software engineer in company TechMagic. And during the past year, I'm working with a software project. It's the healthcare project based on Med. And there was a lot of different situations, how we were using, how we start using Medplum, how we changed our approach with using Medplum, and when we at in the end of this story right now. There was
Before meeting Medplum, how much years of experience do you have? What type of applications have you built?
I would say it's the complete EHR EMR project is the second one, but this is the biggest one I'm currently working on using the Medplum. Before that, I was building different AI products as well. Previous project was educational project for the British colleges and universities. Yeah. Before that, it was a long project related to the merge printing, and it was about 200,000 orders from our e-commerce that we built, and a ton of different users that creating their own designs or something like that, trying to sell something during this part. So I have some experience with building and microservice architecture projects and monolith as well. And that's why for me, Medplum come a bit like something that I have everything to build a EHR platform that I'm currently working on.
So one thing I'll note here is Roman's very typical in the community, somebody who's like senior enough, has a lot of experience. They know what it takes to build and maintain systems. Medplum has a kind of offering to appeal to this audience, help them save time, etc. So glad to connect with you here.
Yeah, it's everything I wanted to say about me. We can start with the next topic, or
yeah, let's jump into the blueprint. So Roman has prepared this blueprint. It's basically like a 12-week format for how to build a FHIR native application, informed by experience, really, like good from his experience building the apps and running the Tech Magic Center of Excellence. Is that sounding right? Or for Medplum stuff?
I can maybe tell that Roman is like our top developer of Medplum. And he has one and only, if you can say, he is center of excellence. If we're talking about Medplum. So yeah, he's a bit shy and a little bit nervous, so sorry. And I also, yeah, it's okay. Please, guys, here the best time to ask questions, because Roman will walk us through this blueprint. You can ask questions about every week or every stage in the chat. Please don't be shy. Yeah, thank you. And Roman.
Thanks, Natalia. Yeah, I tend to torture developers by making them do presentations like this. Thank you, Roman, for bearing with me. All right, let's start. Tell us about the 12-week blueprint.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that first week is started from the discovery. It's a pretty important stage because sometimes someone can just get the idea, for example, of how I can transcribe some user data or some user input to some healthcare data and make some manipulation and make doctors' work to be more easily than it is right now. But it's not enough to start thinking about what you need. And discovery things is a really major thing, and you should start from exactly the compliance regulatory, and this will be
you just walk around on this iteration.
everyone. If you start a startup in the US, it's a good thing that Medplum hosted in the US. It's continue with them, but if you need to start it in, for example, Canada or in Europe, it needs to think about the compliance. In Canada, it's called BEDA. In Europe, it's GDPR, but commonly it's too close to each other. There is more about user data and how we should work with that. Also about auditing and logging, and bit plus that Medplum has everything that we need, as well as the outsourcing best practices to show everything that we needed in audit. And the second part, you need to think about who is Apple will be your user and how is Apple will be targeted. For example, it can be the doctor's application, it can be the patient application, it can be some common application that combine every type of users, and you will be splitting an interface based on their role. But also, it's pretty cool thing to understand, at least on a high level at this stage, about the multi-tenancy. Do you try what you're trying to build? You try to build something for your own clinic, for example, or you want to make something to be used for any other clinic in any other countries or instead of. It's not pretty important to think about this in very deep details, but it's important to know about how you will be moving, because there is a ton of different direction that you can build your project, but you should need to, at least on the high level, understand what you want to build instantly.
Yeah.
Also, integration.
Yeah, good. Excellent point. There's a couple more in-depth things that are important at this stage. If you're in the US, electronic health records need ONC certification. That's the Center for Medicare and Medicaid. Medplum does have that. You can read about it in gory detail on our compliance page. There's also really weird local laws. For example, if you're in Maryland or California, you need to have this special segmentation of data. Medplum, with our multi-tenancy and a lot of rigorous role-based access and data masking capabilities, can help you build out these programs. This is a really good part of the design sprint. Where are you going to be practicing medicine, or where are you going to be having the service? What is the local laws? And then who can see what data if you have a global workforce, for example? This is an excellent point.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about the personas a little bit. What do you mean by personas? Is it like doctors, back office? What are you talking about here?
Yeah, it's during my estimation and investigation, different medical projects, the requester, the guy who wants to build something, don't understand who will be the guy that will be controlling it. For example, in our current platform, we started from the doctor. The doctor should be, in most of cases, initiator of some flows. But after that, it appears that patient more important guy, and we need to prefer to give some extra features for him. And at the end of the day, it ends with the end patient and doctor have equally. Sometimes it can be doctors without patients at all. It can be some platform that can be helpful for doctors to proceed with the patients in the background. That there will be a lot of patients in the other, for example, it's not a telehealth project or something like that. It's something that's helping you to manage, I don't know, like laboratories, or you want to implement your own integrations and you want to make simplify something for management. That's why it would be good. Who is that person? I told people the roles for was depending from the related person. There is FHIR resource I called related person, which is the parent choose the decisions about everything about. It will be nice to understand from scratch. It will help you to understand how much apps or how much interfaces you should build. And also, I would add to regulatory is the someone called MTR. It's called in Europe MTR. Not sure that it will as well the same thing in the US. It's something when we are living in the AI age right now. So everyone who wants to build something and some AI tools features, but from the start, it needs to clearly understand that if you will be needed to make some AI interpretation or AI diagnosis or something like that, it will be required for a pretty big bureaucracy to get the certification. It will be like the device. You should have your backend service as a device, a certified device to use for such things. It's a lot of different. I know in Europe, in Barcelona, there is some company that they passed this certification. It took around 18 months to finish and cost around 100 or 120.
Oh, 18 months is not good. We're talking about 12 weeks.
Yeah, it is the same because a lot of people started to think about, okay, I'm going to create some project and AI will be doing everything, even treat people. Understand, for example, even if you will allow AI to split your patients on the patient appointments and counters, this is the high risky, this is medium level, and this guy can wait a bit while we are helping other one. This operation is also not good from start for AI because AI will take decision and AI will be interrupting the medical data to understand is this guy is super sick or it can wait a bit.
The CLDR here is that if you have questions about compliance, ask before making assumptions. I think there's a lot of precedent here. They can be hard to untangle. I'm putting our Discord in the chat. If you want to, there's a support element there. If you want to just ask about which compliance program, how to do it, I think that is a really good resource. It can slow things down if you don't have good literacy in the compliance. So hopeful that would be good. Let's go on to week 2, Roman. What happens here? And I noticed that you're discussing from the developer perspective. What happens in week 2?
Yeah, it's more about, okay, if you understand what you want to build, you need to prepare everything to start. I'm not talking about real production staging or any other environment that you will be needed. I'm more talking about local development, something extra, I don't know, case, maybe you will be needed to integrate Twilio, to work with Twilio, or like to send an SMS or something like that. It's a good thing to start exactly with on this stage. And for example, to make development faster, you can avoid to use Cloud Medplum to not overcomplicate their service first of all. And you can just, for example, local environment, keep with the Plum repository. They have pretty cool file called Docker Composer for full stack developer that you just can run Docker Compose app -d, and you will run everything. It will be working on your local machine, so the development will be much more faster. This Docker Compose.
Here's the documentation here, how to run the stack. Also, the tutorials to make the cloud sandbox. Hopefully, this will be fast. It's take a whole week, Roman. This is week 2.
I said about week because sometimes it can be, first of all, we are not talking about which approach a user wants to pick up, self-hosting or cloud version. That's what it's something in the middle. And for example, if you will be needed to also, for example, if you will be needed to bring business logic from front end to for example, your whole backend, but you still want to use a cloud version of Medplum, it will be good to have some, I would say, even the Lambda RESTful service for your own project that will be in the middle between the front end and the Medplum cloud. For example, the pretty big operation when you try to schedule a call between doctors and patients, or the SOAP form submission. It's something that will trigger a lot of different file resource creation, as well as the provenance.
Head to week 3. Maybe you can go to there. Yeah, that's because
So that's why this is something that pretty start thing, but it's not something that you need to think about the production stage. It's something that can allow you to continue with development.
yeah. So just set up your sandbox, run on localhost. You don't need any kind of special anything. Just so that okay. What's week 3? Start us off.
So UX prototyping and data modeling. Data modeling is not exactly as you think, because we already have the conditions that we will fit into to work with the EHR EMR projects. We will be keeping everything using the HL server profiles, your score, etc. You will be working exactly in this scope of data modeling. The only thing is that what exactly you will be needing. In the different projects, it will be different approach. I would say that during the development, it will be more extra approaches to make data more better from management perspective. For example, you can start from the diagnostic reports. It's something that is coming from the laboratories. And even, for example, you're trying to integrate your own machines, or you're building your own diagnostic report. It can be pretty simple thing. It can be some header. It can be just the attachment file, PDF. But
We have a React component for that. So that's the storybook.
I'm not talking about the component that you will be needed. I'm more about data modeling. It's if you will be needed to extend this thing, input observation, you will be needed to connect the request through, or during the development, the data structure can be changed. When you work with FHIR data, there is a ton of different approach how you can work with that. Doesn't matter the UX, your interface. In the background, it can be different. So it's a good thing to start with prototyping everything, at least on a high level, to understand exactly what you will be needed. From the first bit, you understood that, okay, you will be needed to continue with, for example, doctor and patient application. And this is exactly the stage when you need to prototype exactly patient, doctor should be seen when they will appear on their account, when they will log in.
And it's US. There's a lot of regulations around this that you have to support a certain FHIR subclass. I just chatted it in there. So I think modeling related to week 1, make sure you're in alignment with the regulations and the other systems that you want to connect to. Very cool. I don't know if folks are familiar with FHIR profiles, but this is also where you may want to explore your profiles and any extensions you may need.
Yeah, this is a lot of clients that wants to build some medical project, thinking more about as medical, as doctor, as practitioner, but it's a pretty huge system hidden from them, and they don't understand. They don't understand how, for example, they press on some select from drop down and see the SNOMED codes, for example. What does it mean, the terminology service, etc. So from their perspective, they think about some abracadabra, and they think that it's too easy to develop. Okay, we need to implement our own terminology, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty huge operation. So that's why it would be nice to have to be on the same level, the same page with a client, or even if you have some technical guy with you, CTO, you will be needed to be on the same page to understand exactly it's from the prototype perspective, not get deep into the FHIR data, but you need to understand that it's not something ready to use. There is already a preset of different UX components, or even totally ready to use a website, as for example, Medplum has through medical for the patient portal with the get care, with the scheduling, slot booking, etc. So it's good to understand what exactly you will be needing.
Yeah. That's okay. Let's tell me about week 4, because I think the data modeling is really in depth. I think there's many reference examples there and domain specific to what type of app you want to build. So what happens in week 4?
Yeah, week 4, it's exactly when you start to work with data. Even before the doctors will doing his job, needs to understand how exactly the structure of your how exactly we will be continued. For example, there will be 2 already to use projects. It's for super admin that they give you a power to do everything in Medplum. And the second project is a FHIR. It's exactly built for the terminology service. So it can be shared between different projects. And after that, you will be understanding the past in these 3 weeks that you already work with some thoughts and some investigation. You will be understanding them. For me, it's pretty important thing how you're gonna build your own environment inside of this project. Even if you just start the project as the single clinic, or it can be, for example, the multiple different clinic in future, you should understand how I should split and design a project. Project is the main part of every data. The patients or the practitioners or our organization, doesn't matter, from one project won't be seen for any project. And many people doing the multi-tenancy splitting by different projects. It's actually a good approach that everyone can work with their own copy of patient, for example, of their resources. But it's actually not so good from the management perspective when you need to synchronize this patient data between different projects. If you, for example, want to do something searching patient across all of your platforms. For example, my current project I'm working on built for the multiple organization, but we want to provide patient data for everyone instantly and as simple as possible after some handshake, after consent assignment. So I not chosen the approach with multiple projects because of exactly this management. When you need to copy everything you will be providing access to the patient in your organization, you'll be needed to copy everything.
Interrupt you for a second. Multi-tenancy is a really important feature of Medplum. Also hard to understand, and there's different use cases for the different implementation. A project is like an isolated set of FHIR resources that it can't cross the project boundary. There is multi-tenancy within projects, which is if you have a unified back office, but physicians at clinic 1, physicians at clinic 2 who shouldn't see each other. You want unified scheduling, unified billing, but the practice of care happens at different locations. That's really for this multi-tenant access policy, which I chatted here. So it's actually probably a good topic for week 1 to try and straighten out. But once you have decided on your project setup, then you implement it week 4.
Yeah, it's maybe I'm talking a bit not needed words for this week, but I'm talking about when you from this week, you will start to understand what exactly will be in your project or in your projects. But I just talking about this thing that I was missing maybe in previous weeks. This way, yeah, the project, it will be the tools will be your workspace with everything that you will be working with. Yeah, and that's why, for example, in our project, we have only one project for each user data. We are splitting using the accounts and access policy, because access policy feature swap is working pretty good in Medplum. Yeah. And this, when you will be understanding what exactly I will be needed for this project, they have pre-built enablement bots. It can be done by admin, the project admin. We can upload a bot, email sending, etc., from even a WebSocket if you will be needed to use chatting, etc. This is when you
to move soon to week 5, but I'm seeing some questions in the chat. Organizations and corporations are at the project level, and all clinics are separate organizations within the project. Potentially, to answer your question, there are use cases for each organization to have its own project. That's very traditional health record. If you want more of a larger practice with a unified back office and stuff like that, then organization and corporations are all in the same project and the clinics are separated by access policies. That's another implementation pattern. All right, let's
as per now this question, it's, I would say, that trade-offs, it will be and to use the project splitted and the access policy splitted. You will be, it's really very independent from the exactly what you want to build. In both of cases, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Week 5. We might need to do a bit of lightning weeks. We're really getting into it. Okay, access policies. We talked about that. This is
policy. Yeah, it comes information. And this is exactly a lot of people were thinking about, okay, right now we are we want to build features we want to see is we want to build some proof of concept. Maybe we can continue with access policy in future.
Yeah.
It actually was a really problem in my current project when we postponed this access policy thing during lifetime, because after you run in the production environment and you have your own group for testing to get some feedbacks and understanding, you are collecting a lot of different data and you understand that the design of how you work in those roles that is work in some organization cannot be as easy restricted as you think. So it's exactly a good point to think about access policy and how you will be splitting rights of each participant of your project.
Yeah.
For example, doctors,
go.
managers, etc.
The access policies are meticulously documented, so I'm hopeful that will be a good resource for you. What happens in week 6?
Yeah, this is exactly about the prototype implementations. First of all, you can choose the way that is fastest to use a Medplum provider application for doctors and continue to work with patient portal. And the patient is the main character of your application, and you want to consider this is the guy, insurance will be charged, and we want to build fancy application for him. So it's exactly the point that you will be working on very customization. You will be working on the application for the patient, which is, as I said, that Medplum already has as example for medical, but I'm almost sure that you will be changing it for 100% sure, because many different cases, they have their own marketing team. They thinking about the colors, fonts, and how users should feel in their platform. For example, integrate some blogs, integrate some chatting, maybe agent like chatbot agents. So this is exactly when you start to coding the flow already built in the diagrams, and you try to implement this in this week 6.
So Provider is your friend with prototyping. I recommend looking at, we'll do a quick demo of it as well. David is here. He's the primary developer on Provider. You have all the access to everything you would need to know. All right, what happens in week 7?
Week 7, you can be surprised with, once again, we multi-tenant, which one is their own cleaning, single tenant with.
I will chat you the guide on multi-tenant MSO. Yes, that is a good call out.
Yeah, you can well surprise flow if there's only 1 week for implementation. Again, I tried to make some medium. You can actually build very custom patient application starting from scratch using, but actually at the same time, you can use examples, React components of Medplum, and just to make some styles adjustments. For example, and get tailoring like CSS, design flows, etc. But the components in UX perspective, it will be exactly as the Medplum components probably like written and the working, and as the same thing as example. So you can really build this thing during the 1 week, but actually you can build it you can build this more faster if you continue with the full medical completely, or it can be much longer if you will choose the pretty custom implementation.
So this is the key point here. I think if you're using the Medplum design system, React components, stuff like that's a fast path, you can absolutely use the TypeScript SDK and build up your own design system and break it down to a bit lower level. That's more effort, but it's also both paths are supported. I'd say in our community, we see people really on the provider side for the doctors and stuff like that, making heavy use of the design system. And then for the patient experience, it's more nuanced. People really want to make it consumer grade. So sometimes they're really breaking it down to just the TypeScript SDK. Cool. Okay. Week 7, what's going on here?
Patient engagements and notifications. It's actually a pretty cool thing to understand how it will be in touch with your patients. For example, if you have telehealth project and there's, for example, virtual appointments, and you want your patients to not miss anything, and that's why you want to implement something reminders, or you want to send SMS messages, or you want some post visit questionnaire. This is exactly where you can build something that makes your patient. We're not talking about that it should be done within week 7. It can be postponed, but why not? If you start with the patient portal, you understood already that you want to bring for your patients. It's good to continue with some sort of notification reminders, etc., etc.
There's also samples of these in the repos, so you can just maybe fork if you want to have something to quick start.
Yeah, the ability to do this with Medplum, with cloud version, with self-hosted version, a ton of difference. So I won't be talking about examples because there's really different logic. You can do everything you need to use any services, to use any integrations without any problems.
Yeah.
And we ain't exactly about external integrations. And I wouldn't say that this thing can take 1 week. It can be really something that can be developed during the 2 days, for example, few days, but something can be developed in few months, for example. It's very dependent on what kind of integrations you will be needed and what you want exactly to use it. I'm more talking about not just some I'm talking more about some medical integration. You want interaction between your medical data and any other software. If you need to use something that video call, transcribe, interiorization, it's something different, a bit different integration. But right now I'm talking about more when you need to interact with the medical data and some sort of integration. For example, when we start with
So, Roman,
integration
I'm going to
customer-
interrupt you here real quick. Medplum has for those who are in the US, and Medplum has pre-built integrations to labs, medications, revenue cycle, and health information exchange. You don't need to contract separately. If you have Medplum Cloud, you can just get this. You can get your Health Gorilla, you can get your revenue cycle, clearinghouse, and medications. I think this is a very good way to save time if you are desiring that.
Exactly. And that's why I said that it can take 2 days, it can take lifetime. Because there is a lot of that all of the different approaches, even if with self-hosting, there is an options to work with Plum to get a lot of needed thing that you need to work with it. But when we started with Health Gorilla, we were thinking about one approach, but when we continue, the Health Gorilla integration took a long time because when you're working with medical data synchronization, you want to find some medical data of your patient across the United States. At the end of the day, you can find 5,000 different resources that you somehow to put in your machine. Good things that Medplum has also validator and is able to work with that. But it's a big thing because this integration can be some part of integration when you're making the request and making some exchange of information can be done fast. But when you work on the synchronization of medical data, you should be ready to understand that not every EHR, EMR projects storing the documents, resources on a good manner when they are using the validators again.
Okay.
There are a lot of surprises.
Roman, I'm going to maybe rush you a little bit because we're going a bit, we need to move through, but I think we're getting into the tail end of stuff here, the last 4 weeks. Tell us what happens in week 9.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry about it. Consent automation and audit trails. About audit trails, there is more about audit in the plugin that Medplum already has. And there's pretty enough all these subscribers, events that happen that already recorded to the logs of audit events. Pretty enough to just forget about this. But in some case, you wanted to add some extra audit, or you needed to make some extra provenance when there was some virtual visit appointment. There were created a lot of different resources, and you will be needed to make the provenance, the FHIR resource called provenance, to make the more audit information, but in more FHIR resource way, not just audit event that is more system level audit. Yeah, and also about consent, what you exactly wanted to from your users. For example, if you need to get consent for treatment, you need to get consent for share the data if you have multiple different clinics. Good to start with this implementation. Pretty clear, we have annual, every time will be needed consents from the patient. You shouldn't miss that part, even if it sounds not important on this stage. It's really important. It will be good to implement and forget about it in the future. Understand that you don't have to miss something with your auditors. Yeah.
This is related to the week 1 because different compliance frameworks do need different consents. Totally. Okay, let's skip the performance, security, and DR. We have you well covered there. We welcome any questions here. Okay, what happened in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, production deployment and limited launch. It doesn't matter what approach you're using, like you're using cloud version of Medplum or self-hosting. Even if you're using the self-hosting approach, Medplum already has pre-built CI/CD pipeline actions for the GitHub. Medplum has a lot of different approaches for hosting to use CDK, for example, for AWS or Azure. You can decide, but even if you use the cloud version, you will be needed to host something, for example, your web application. And it's good to implement some CI/CD pipelines. It's every time it's more better than to deploy manually. And also maybe there will be some middleware, for example, for extra services. For example, you will be needed to work with AI, and it's much more better to work with AI agents, for example, through the different backend. This week exactly about this thing, and you starting the production itself. It's working. You understand you can go to the project setup as well, because when you develop it locally, you'll only have the preset of data or different data. On production, it will be good to continue with setup everything that you need. Turn on features, create some access policy or upload some access policy, etc., etc. This exactly big about. And the 12 week is not something that you start, but it's when you get real feedback and you will understand what you need to build.
Yeah.
And the result can be very different. You can just continue with your own project, or you can just say, okay, it's not the thing that we needed. We need to completely change everything. Yeah, it will be the lifetime. But it's the time when you're already in production and you are getting the feedbacks from users.
Okay, Roman, I'm going to ask you to do 30 seconds each on the next 3 slides because we're really getting into it. It's great.
Yeah, it's a really good question. A result when you need to use the Medplum or where you don't need to use it. And I would say, long story short, from my opinion, if you understand that you will be working with medical data, not just only get somewhere and keep it in my system, but you want to interact, make some, I don't know, resend somewhere or create your own medical documentation, I would say that Medplum is a good choice. Even if you will check in any other frameworks, I would say the Medplum is a more better way to start with that. First of all, it can be really a small project. We had this on our estimation, when, for example, there was a pretty basic logic. But since that there was interaction between patient, doctors, and get back to the patients, it's really good to start with Medplum because this is already built completely HR API server. You don't need to think about terminology. You don't need to think about design of endpoints, how they should look like. You don't need this backend completely itself. It's a really complex thing, not just development, but for testing in future. So you will save a lot of time and you will be needed this exactly because your medical project, even if you shared small amount data between patients and doctors, it's data. And it should be the FHIR resources, which is commonly used. Even here, right now, I'm in Europe, and Europe starting to work in this direction. When they have, for example, EU My Health in Europe, it's a new service that will be finishing in 2029. So it's good to get as good behavior as a good boy. You should store correctly your data. You should speak correctly your data, even if you don't want to grow up with your project in future. But sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you, Roman. We're running short on time. Maybe we can do a quick one here. I'd say when Medplum may not be ideal, this is a very rare case. I'm just using. Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a solution when you want to build some wellness. And if you know that, okay, I need to get some FHIR resources for the Apple Watch to get some FHIR data, have different conditions from the person, and says that it is FHIR resources, but Medplum, but you will make it some AI generation and say that, okay, you just need to do some exercises or something like that. That you really don't need to build, split, etc., etc. Medplum, it's not something that created to use from this perspective, and it will be overcomplicated from infrastructure perspective and from the architecture perspective as well. Maybe if you're thinking about small wellness application, you should build something with your own technologies. But in future, if you will be connected with some different clinics, medical projects, it's good to start to use Medplum, but it will be overcomplicated to reach the good thing from the entity to start with Medplum with small steps.
Okay. Let's flash this next one. Here, we will share this deck. I think Roman has done a really good job in synthesizing the features that he uses the most, which the website has a lot of stuff, and this is very compact. Appreciate that. And I do think let's jump into a demo if possible. I'll take over the screen share here. What?
There's a few questions.
Yeah,
What about?
I've been chatting folks here. Maybe you can answer this one while I pull up the demo, and I'll take the screen share, Roman.
Shared projects will work. Shared projects is a good thing. I was used it, but I was used in the version 3 of Medplum, and there was big problems, and there was in development. Right now, it's more question to the rich mark is the shared project as well. Because when you create a new project, and you can share it with another one. I think the new version it should work, but investigated this feature when Medplum version was 3.
Question about seeding the projects. We will show in the client before we start seeding.
From that perspective, what teams and levels here do you need to fit? I would say it would much more better to find the guy who is pretty confident to work with FHIR resources. I think this is the most difficult thing and the most important thing. Developer, it can be even the middle developer. You can really build this the project to use example, and there will be mostly the front end fork.
Yeah.
Disable and you will be working with bots if you will need some customization. But to understand the FHIR resource interaction relation between each other is a pretty important thing, and it's exactly what I was spending more time than just implement some features.
Here, this is Medplum app that I'm showing here. This is a browser under file data. It's one of the best ways to learn about how to. What I have to do is open up the console and you can see, oh, what kind of searches are made? Oh, copy as curl. And get a sense for what requests are happening and how the shape of the data is. It's a very useful tool and shows how to do all the CRUD and what you would get back from the API you can see in the Medplum app. I think one of the things that is very useful to go fast that Roman had alluded to several times in the presentation is Medplum Provider. Let me just make sure that I authenticate with well. And then this is an open source application. The code is in the chat, but it shows how to do very many of the core workflows. And it's a reference starting point that you can use to show how to do scheduling, make the appointments, all that stuff, messages, tasking. It has a AI integration that you can ask David about. So it shows a lot of the reference material that you might take a lot of guesswork to figure out how to do the data model and all that stuff. But just seeing the reference example is just one way to go fast. And if you can use it for your rapid prototype, I believe that was week 4, then that can be something that's helpful for you. So again, Medplum provider is here in the repos, and it's something that hopefully can be a resource to you all in your going fast. Same with Foo Medical. This is also an open source application. Sources in the footer here. Let's open up for some Q&A in last 3 minutes. Folks have questions?
Hi, yeah, I've been looking at Medplum for a while since we're a lot smaller, trying to see as you evolved how it might fit into what we're doing, which is building a whole lot of stuff manually. What we're doing is building bulk export apps, FHIR apps, and standalone launch apps that our customers will approve and install. And what we do is run a daily job to export any updates to patient records and related records. We process that in a pipeline that uses AI a lot, matching the records up with insurance policy documents. Fairly involved in ensuring that we're reading the right insurance policies, matching the condition or conditions for each patient. And the end goal is we produce a report that determines whether prior authorization is likely to succeed or not. So it'll list off all the requirements. It'll put check marks beside everything that's met. And if there's anything that's not met, that's flagged then to the clinician.
Then you do it in a bulk job and not real time. Every time a new patient comes in, you just make them their report.
Because there's a bunch of AI prompts running to match up the conditions with the data we've pulled from the various health insurance providers. It's not going to happen probably even within 15 seconds. And it's totally something that can be done in the background. The clinic closes at whatever 5 o'clock and we run the job overnight, the patient's records, and can be updated during that time. We do store data, but it's a pretty short lifetime. We're not really running a FHIR data store. I do see how that could be useful for us too, eventually. But I saw a slide there about the bots and workflows. I don't know how flexible those are. Can I really do anything in a workflow step? I inject one of my AI prompting, pulling insurance company documents as a workflow step.
You sure can. Show you an example of a bot. A bot is a Lambda, and it has a full TypeScript SDK. Event-driven is an example. This one is an autoresponder bot that when someone sends you the message, it sends a response, but you can see how it works. There's a handler. In your case, there's a new patient, go pull all their records, go sync to an external API, hit your prompt, get back the token, save it, can do all of that stuff. I think that is the intended use case. We find these very useful to have as part of a workflow, and happy to answer any questions on it. We have,
And the bots where to be
yeah.
JavaScript or TypeScript or
Yes, Sweden, actually, you can call this functions that we will build after deploy pretty differently. It can be the RESTful REST endpoint. It can be the webhook that you, for example, the patient and no name, change it, and it can be like triggered by certain criteria. And also using the extensions, it can be even the patient deleted or some appointments deleted, and this, for example, reminder or email sense can be triggered. It's a pretty big thing with this bot.
yeah. Eventually, we'd like to go to triggers when a patient record is updated. We'll trigger a workflow or what.
Yeah, also, if you're working with AI, there is not super new, but it's new feature in Medplum, which called MCP. And you can search through the different resources using the MCP connector, and it will be pretty good thing for your AI.
As far as then, when I'm sure you're aware, one of the difficulties in the various health record providers is getting your app to authenticate, getting the registration, getting all the settings correct, getting all the approval and the customer to deploy. It's just a massive headache. Are you integrated with a lot of EHRs, all the big ones, just a few?
Our model is we have the templates for the integration. You can find them here in the example, but typically it requires a last mile connectivity where they need to open up the connection for you. But this shows the hello world of how to do it. And other EHRs are very similar. The EHRs have to expose the FHIR G10 interface for the read case. That would be what's there. We also do support connecting to the exchanges if that's if you're doing treatment use cases, that's supported. The TEFCA exchange or the QHINs.
Okay.
Let me chat you the guide on that.
I'm not sure what an exchange is.
Care Quality, Commonwealth, have you heard of those? Or it's a national, or if you're in the US, a national registry or national exchange of data that is part of the recent regulations.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
If you search for HIE or something on the Medplum site, you'll see the resources related. I'm also happy to answer any questions. Shoot me an email. But we are actually over time. If there's any last minute questions or anything, thank you all. So I'll stick around for another minute or two. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us for our webinar. And Roman, I hope I didn't torture you too much with all the questions. It was really fun for me. And we really appreciate you all being here. If you subscribe to our YouTube, we'll post the recording and a write-up as well, so we can have some reference material for all the extremely information-rich presentation here.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it was good point to spend time with you. Okay.
Awesome. All right, everybody, have a great morning and evening, afternoon, wherever you are.